Let's now bring in Brooke Goldstein. She's the executive director of the Lawfare Project. Brooke, good to have you with us. What is the UN trying to accomplish with this list?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that what the United Nations is doing is publishing a blacklist of Jewish businesses and their business associates that do business in Judea and Samaria, which is the homeland of the Jewish people. Jewish people, just like Secretary of State Pompeo said very recently, have every legal right to live alongside Muslims, alongside Christians in Judea and Samaria. To say anything else is racist, and it's absolute bigotry.
All right, well, Brooke, the United Nations will contend that it feels that Israel is violating international law. Okay, that is subject to debate. What is not subject to debate, however, is the fact that there are other countries in the world with disputed territories where two sides contend that they have a claim to that land. But the UN hasn't published a blacklist of companies doing business in those disputed territories of other countries. So how does one explain the double standard there?
Well, of course, I mean, the hypocrisy is so rampant at the United Nations that I think with this particular move, it has really written itself into total irrelevance. And it's not the first time we've seen an international organ attempt to blacklist or discriminate against Jewish businesses. We just saw the European Court of Justice, for example, issue an opinion saying that Jewish businesses have to be differentiated from Muslim businesses if they operate in Judea and Samaria. And I want to make one thing absolutely clear. No serious scholar of international law would say that Israel does not have the sovereign right to control the territories. From the San Remo Accords, the British Mandate, the Anglo-American Treaty, the League of Nations, everything that was incorporated into the United Nations Charter. Even if you advocate for a two-state solution, how can Israel then negotiate away something that it does not legally own? The position that Israel does not have legal sovereign control, even with the Oslo Accords, is factually and legally wrong.
Well, and that's what we heard from U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo when he reverted back to a previous U.S. position that the Israeli so-called settlements in the West Bank are not inconsistent with international law. But here you had the U.S., the U.K., and Israel trying to prevent this list from being published for 3 years. Are you surprised that their efforts failed? And what do you make of the timing of this week?
Well, the timing is obvious. They are trying to punish Jewish businesses for engaging in a peace plan, the only relevant and viable peace plan that we've heard recently. I want to make 2 points. Number one, I'm not even sure why we use the term settlement anymore. It's not the Pale of Russia. There are Jewish homes, Jewish businesses, and they have every right to be there. And in terms also of the attempt to delay publication, I welcome this publication. You know why? Because I guarantee you that any company operating within the United States or Europe, if they comply with this published list, they will be held accountable to the full extent of the law. We have robust anti-boycott laws in this country that protect against national origin discrimination. I guarantee you that our network of civil rights lawyers will be applying that law.
To your point, it's not just Jewish businesses and companies named in that list. It also includes international enterprises like Motorola, Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Expedia, General Mills. Now, all of those are from the U.S., so they may be subject to U.S. anti-boycott laws. But you've also got companies, Alstom from France, for example, Greencoat from the United Kingdom. What impact do you think it may have on those companies? Do you see them now being deterred from doing business with Israel because of this list?
Well, that's the intent, is deterrence. But I think what is a greater deterrent factor is the law. And if these companies comply with an anti-Jewish boycott, they will be held accountable according to anti-discrimination laws. We have a lawsuit right now, for example, against the National Lawyers Guild, an American legal guild that attempted to institute an unlawful boycott against Israeli persons. And they are being held accountable in a court of law. And by the way, these non-Jewish companies and non-Israeli companies who are listed, they are listed precisely because they are doing business with Israelis in Judea and Samaria. So it's Jewish and Israeli companies and their business associates.
So the U.S. and Israel pulled out of the UNHCR a few years ago because of this discrimination against Israel. Was that the right move, or was it better to be there and try and exert some kind of influence, at least from the U.S.'s perspective?
I think the Human Rights Council has lost all legitimacy, and I think it absolutely was the right move because the United States had been a part of the Human Rights Council, and up until now, it has really been what Alan Dershowitz says, a democracy of totalitarian dictatorships. This is not the rule of law. The United Nations has been completely perverted and all of its organs perverted as a weapon against not just the Jewish state, but also against the United States, for example.
All right, Brooke, thank you so much. Appreciate you being with us and giving your analysis and perspective. Brooke Goldstein, Executive Director for the Lawfare Project.